All right, family. It is that time. It is that time. Shout out to everybody in the comments section. Y'all see who I got here. Before I bring on my guest, as usual, I want y'all to make sure you hit the like button. We're gonna get to a few commercials, and then it's on.
We're going in.
Yeah, we going in after that point. So yeah, get comfortable, hit the like button, let your friends and family know we're live, and we'll be right back in about 1 minute, family. All right.
Hey there! Had a bad dream? I have dreams too. Some parts are scary and some parts are fun. Always remind yourself, it's only a dream and everything will be okay. I had a dream about being in a forest too. Check it out, my pet Petey was with me. Order your copy of Kayla Petey and the Forest on Amazon today.
Here, aka Goddess Guru, let me tell you something. When you think about magical people that seem to be manifesting the life of their dreams, those that have enough resources to do what they are called to do, and it just seems like the universe unfolds for them, it's no accident. Many of them are working with supernatural tools. I have created such a tool with my 2023 Angels Unleashed calendar. Go to VickyPlanet.com, buy them by the dozens. Let me see you there.
It's the numerational session with King Simon. Text your full name and date of birth to 347-496-1022. That's 347-496-1022. And get my books on Amazon now.
All right, and we are back. And without further ado, making her debut on Black Magic 363, the Sea Star, FleurBrun.
FleurBrun, yes,
FleurBrun.
yes. You said it perfect. Yeah.
Welcome to the show.
Thank
to the
you.
show.
Appreciate you having me on.
Good to have you on here. Very good to have you on here. Look forward to tonight. A lot of people were excited when I made the announcement. Very excited. So for those who, being that this is your first time, for those who are looking to know more about you, could you tell the people a little bit about yourself before we get started?
Well, many know me as FleurBrun or Delgadas. I've been on YouTube for since about over 10 years. Yeah. So I'm from the sector, the UFO sector, the supernatural sector. Mm-hmm. I'm originally from Mount Vernon, but as you know, I speak French. French is my first language. My parents are from Martinique and St. Lucia. So big up to the island crew by way of South America. Grew up in Mount Vernon, New York. I've been part of the UFO kind of metaphysical sector for a long time. I was under the tutelage of the late Dr. Blair. So many people know me from that group. I was a lecture head. So a lot of me know me as the geek from Mount Vernon, taking the train over to Harlem to do the lectures of like the greats as Bobby Hemmett, Dr. Delbert Blair, Phil Valentine, and Ali. I mean, so many wonderful elders who have literally assisted with my growth and my evolution. So I'm so grateful for them. And I've been on YouTube for a long time, speaking about many different topics, as you well know.
Yeah. A lot of the videos I've seen of yours, you definitely remind me of Delbert Blair and the information he disseminated. I have to ask you, in terms of UFOs, extraterrestrials, and a lot of the things you say, where do you get your information from? Is it channel? Do you have visitations? Is it book form? Is it like, where do you get your information? Because you say a lot of very interesting things.
Well, I'm a contactee, and I spoke about a contactee. Rather than saying that I'm a abductee, which was probably the term that was used for many years in the UFO sector, my liaison with what you consider to be the galactics is very positive, very inspirational. A lot of the information that I've gained is just through being in contact, and I'm not one who channels. Everything comes kind of tangible in the Sagittarius, so it has to come like face to face or more in a way that I can pick up or have a conversation with those who are so called from the other side. And because I've had contact. I've made, a lot of friends, and I had a lot of, liaisons with people from that sector. So a lot of the information that I've gained is through personal wisdom, person to person, and also from just being around some amazing, magnanimous people.
Indeed. So we live in some interesting times. It's 2023. A lot is going on. What are they telling you about what's happening right now?
Well, I think this is kind of, it's weird because years ago,
Mm-hmm.
when I was talking about it, it seemed so far fetched, and people were like,
Yeah.
"Well, you're fear mongering. This can't happen." Well, just basically, it's a shift. It's a reset. It's some religious people call it the rapture. You know, the some call it the apocalypse. It is a cycle, a cylindrical cycle that we go through every couple of hundreds of years, depending on what you acknowledge, and we go through this evolution as a soul group. Some, you know, I don't know that everybody's a soul. You know, some people are just here for expectation, or some people like to call them background people, empty seaters, or Sims,
Uh,
or
and what's the word? NPCs.
NPCs, which is my favorite
NPCs.
term. And
Yeah.
these are just basically holographic beings that kind of fill up the space while we're engaging in our evolution here on the holographic planet called Earth. I personally think this is an Earth. I think this is a hologram and like a copy of what was considered to be Earth.
So what was the original Earth if this is a copy of what was once considered to be Earth?
Tiamat. Many people recognize her name, Tiamat. And there are different worlds that are reminiscent of Earth with the same similar geographical terrain. And if you've been accustomed to knowing, my perspective is that we're living in a dome, like a snow globe, right? And our weather is modified, controlled, everything that we engage with, whether it's food or interaction or even the agendas that are ran, are purposefully done during this cycle while we're interfacing with one another. And as we evolve and gain a certain amount of wisdom and consciousness, we evolve and perhaps have the ability to exodus outside of the dome, where there's multiple domes outside of ourselves, which some people call them planets, but they're literally other worlds. And many of us genetically come from those other worlds. That's why there's so many different phenotypes in this particular, Earth, simulation.
Indeed. Being that this is a simulation and we talked about background people, NPCs, we have the NPCs. That's for those who don't know what that means, it's an acronym for non-playable characters. So in video games, you just got people in the background that's just, they're non-playable, they're just there. What happens if a person with a soul gets NPC pregnant, or if that's even possible?
And to my understanding, it is impossible. You can play with the NPC, you can interface with an NPC, but realistically, NPCs can kind of interface with each other and give birth to holographic or more NPCs. But a soul, and we kind of big up to the Zombies, we were kind of discussing this on my Zoom last night, is a soul is a individual that comes with the connection to source outside of the firmament. And because of that, they can only give birth to that. A soul can only give birth to a soul. Even if we try to interface with an NPC or empty seater, it's just fodder. It's just we play with them and that's it. They're just meant to fill in the space, almost like props in a play.
The reason why I asked that is because if a lot of people in the pro-black movement, going back to the days of Elijah Muhammad, where they talk about the creation of what we call the white race, some people would say they don't have souls. So then the question always becomes, what happens when a black man gets with a white woman and has that baby? You get what I'm saying? If that black man has a soul and you saying these people don't have souls, then what happens? What is that baby? What is that biracial, the outcome of that biracial child? You get what I'm saying?
Well, complexion doesn't denote soul essence. There are more mature soul groups and less mature soul groups. So as you know that we interface, I always think there's stages of a person's evolution. And I always liken it to, I'm from Generation X, so I'm going to reference it to like a Pac-Man game.
Yes.
At the beginning of a Pac-Man game, you play, you get all the cherries, you know what I'm saying? There's only one ghost coming through the side, you chilling, okay? Next stage, you pass that stage, okay, you may get a cherry, it's a little bit of a struggle. There's still some ghosts coming on, there's some homies coming from all different angles. And at that last, more evolved stage, when you've gained a lot of wisdom in the game, there's a lot of ghosts and you could barely get a cherry. But when you accomplish that level, you kind of to supersede that level, that game, that play game. So I liken it to there are souls here that are newer or spirits, and then there are souls are more evolved. And their reincarnation stages. So if someone says complexion matters, I would say whoever has the most difficult, most challenging time in this particular firmament program, it's because they've evolved and they're a higher and more evolved soul. They're just more advanced. So brown people who are experiencing what I consider to be more trials and tribulations, I would liken them to be more advanced because they have reincarnated to the stage where they have evolved to be able to engage with mastery that allows them to overcome, supersede any level of challenges, and then to express themselves, whether it's an exodus or, being, doing an exodus outside of this firmament, this prison system.
Do you think early in the conversation you made a reference to Tiamat or Tiamat? Do you think some of the souls that incarnated at this time comes from that era of Tiamat when Earth? Yeah,
because they have her memory. They have a memory of her name, her essence, her physiological makeup. So many of us come from that realm where we remember having beautiful green pastures, engaging with the trees, having sentient interfacing with all of the elementals, whether it be fairies, whether it be the birds, the animals. We had a connection to a more elemental realm. Not everybody's from that realm, though, and you can see it in the behavioral patterns of the general consensus of people in this reality. You have people that are very cold, far removed. They aren't very nature oriented. They may even seem a little detached from interfacing, almost like, there's different layers of, I come from the ET sector, so like insectoid kind of behavior, very Borg-like, okay, we're going to do this, no emotional connection. And then there are people who are more soft natured and more connected with nature. There's different types of essences that exist inside this firmament that come from different worlds. And if you ever gotten a chance to see the globe, there's a beautiful map that's done by this South American gentleman, and you see all the different, what people perceive as planets. They're just land masses under other domes outside the firmament that we exist. And this I liken to be like for some people, it's considered to be like a prison system where, you're engaged with like psychopaths, sociopaths, people doing all kinds of, ridiculous things, and people are doing a bid here. And there are people who won't ever leave here because they're lifers. So they're caught up in the loop. And that's why their life is so easy here, because just like if you're in prison, you make the best of the situation when you're in prison because you're going to do life.
Oh, shit.
So
you said they got a life sentence. Wow. Damn.
Yes. So they aren't able to leave, but what happens is that they want to try to make it so that others can't leave. It's like hating on someone. It's like, if I can't leave, you know what I'm saying? I'm going to make it very difficult for you to leave. So these are lifetime loopers. And these are what you see politicians and people on the top tier. And I'm not saying all, but the majority that are illuminated generally are the lower tier as far as ranking in the prison system.
Wow, you say very interesting terms. Lifetime loopers. Yes. I like that. They're lifetime loopers in your comparison.
They're going to be back in this loop for the next cycle. After we do reset, they're going to be back in here doing the same shenanigans, cause and wreck, creating more chaos, because they haven't the ability. They can evolve, but they've gotten past that. They've decided to make a decision. They made a decision to participate in low frequency behavior. And once they've done it so many times and they've kind of hacked the system, they can be king in here. You know what I mean? Why leave the firmament when you've gained a certain higher ranking in this, this holographic existence?
Is this experiment, would you want to come back here? Is this something?
No, I'm leaving.
You're good with this?
Yeah.
So was this a conscious decision from your soul to come here at this time?
Every soul is conscious. And even if you're sentenced here into the holographic, programmable loop, you've chosen to come here, whether it's through soul evolution, you needed to come here to gain a certain amount of conscious wisdom, or you've been sentenced here because you were diabolical in the realms you came from.
Outside of the firmament, what realm would you say you come from?
The Andromeda.
Andromeda?
System, yes.
Could you tell us a little bit about that?
The Andromeda system is it's solely female. So
It's an all woman.
It's all women, yeah.
Wow,
And I think a lot of your movies have spoken about this particular place with Wonder Woman. You know, they just changed the complexion. Your Amazonians are referenced. That is the world I come from. We were able to give birth through Pathogenesis. We existed and lived. We weren't aging. We were a very cohesive, loving group of, wonderful Andromedans. And we've had liaisons with other groups like the Anunnaki, some of the insectoids. We've had great connections with certain groups that are more cohesive to the type of lifestyle that we've lived throughout the centuries.
There's, the Anunnaki is a hot topic in the internet community. What can you tell us about the relations between the Anunnaki and the Andromedans?
They're kin. They're like cousins.
They're like cousins. Okay.
The Andromedans originally were from like the Tiamat realm, and they kind of evolved and went into the outer domes, so to speak. The Anunnaki is like an oversoul group. It's multiple groups that kind of make up, and I don't want to say Anunnaki, let's say they're the Nibirians, Nibiru. It's multiple groups that kind of make up that landmass. And though they've been heinously disregarded, especially on YouTube, they've been talked about, vilified. That is actually the opposite. And you should know, I tell people to always recognize that when they try to vilify something and try to demonize it, most likely it's the opposite. Okay. These are more melanated beings, likened to some of our ancient statues that you see in ancient Kemet or the Sumerian tablets. They have a lot of genetic background, so there's a lot of genetic splicing and dicing that they've done over time to kind of make people more cohesive, like certain species more cohesive, and try to mesh them so that they can make kind of like a different hybrid, so to speak, that was more cohesive for whatever terrain they were going to exist in. The Anunnaki are blamed for a lot of the tyrannical things, but there are other groups that have done much more heinous things. And when it comes to the melanated groups, the Anunnaki is the top tier, along with some of the Centaurians and the Andromedans that work together cohesively. And their mark here, before a lot of the lies of the historical accounts, people saying that brown people were slaves. If you look in some of the old archives, and I'm not talking about on Google, you got to go a little further. I'm from a certain generation when we had to research and we had to actually go to the books and literature and old archives. You'll see that the lies were that brown people were enslaved for a longer period of time. But what it was is that there were higher hierarchy of brown people and living well and living without some form of enslavement. And actually, it's the opposite. There were lunars, white people who were enslaved under that tier. And when we did the flip, it kind of flipped where there was an advantage for them. So brown people weren't always slaves. In a lot of historical accounts, they speak about that. That wasn't true. They were the builders of a lot of the societies. The Tertarian societies you see, those were melanated people that built a lot of those foundations. When you talk about the Tertarian societies that existed previous to the mud floods, am I going too far?
No.
So,
not at all.
So because of that, we're living in a polarity, in a system, this snow globe, this firmament that we're existing in, it deals with polarities. So whenever one is above, it'll kick up the next one during the reset. That's why the Masons like to do the black and white, the checkerboard, because it's reminiscent of the polarities playing out. So literally when one part of society is raised up, it will live out that time frame until reset. And then if they haven't evolved to a certain conscious level, they will experience whatever tyranny they've expressed on others. So that's why you see the bouncing up and down. So race, I don't believe in races. I believe in different conscious levels, and also blood types also are reminiscent of different species. So if you're a positive Rus, you're probably from that same genetic makeup. And if you're negative Rus, you come from a different expression of genetic makeup.
A little while ago, you referred to white people as lunar people. Why was that? What did you mean?
Because of the color of the moon. So I always say, because I always thought it was really generic to call people by a complexion that wasn't really denoting really what they were. So I don't think calling brown people black, which is actually the opposite, because when you do a reflection, black people are actually light beings. And lunars actually are devoid of light. So it's actually I prefer to call people by something that I think is more luminous and positive.
Indeed. So where does you mentioned Sirius and Andromeda? No, no, you mentioned, I'm sorry, you mentioned Andromeda and Anunnaki. Where does Sirius play into this whole thing? Because
Sirius,
a lot of people would say they're from Sirius.
Sirius is another, again, if you look at, I wish I had the map. If you look at the globe and you look at
Mm,
the other outer land masses, Sirius is out close to, I think it's out close to Andromeda. I think people are having memories of being from there and being from that Sirius star system and being connected to other outer land masses where they connect to the beings from that realm. That's all. I don't
indeed.
believe in planets that are above. That's a hologram. The planets
Right.
aren't above, they're around us.
Okay, so all right, so the planets are around us. The whole universe is a firmament. So how do we travel to these other planets?
Through portals and
Through portals.
vortexes, but you have to qualify.
Ooh, give me explain.
Well, not everyone there, even though the government, I like to say Willy Wonka, I have code words for government, but usually the government, they use jump rooms to be able to travel in and out of different parts and sectors of our so-called galaxy, right? And the different dimensions. But if you qualify, meaning that you raised a certain, you're at a certain tier in frequency and vibration, you are able to access specific portals that are genetically connected to your ancestors. So that's why there was also a movement of brown people, which were the natives to the Americas. Okay. That's what the reason was, and the motivation was to move them around so they wouldn't be able to access their native portals. So during times, that's why you didn't see the ancient Kemetics, there anymore, because they exited out of their portals, their vortexes, and also with the Mayans and also with the Olmecs. You aren't seeing those societies where those people are still there because during those cataclysms, they had the chance to exit out of the portals that were genetically reminiscent, connected to their DNA.
Wow, that's very interesting. So what would you say, what part of our biological technology activates these portals? Like
Well,
is it our heart? Is it our memory? Is it the DNA? What activates these portals? Like if I was to see one, like in the movies they got these spaceships and you got to know how to work the spaceship.
yeah,
What will get that spaceship working within our technology?
it's kind of like this. A baby wouldn't have access. Like if you see a newborn baby and the
Yeah,
baby's, somewhere, they would look at a book and they wouldn't know what it was. They wouldn't know
yeah.
how to access it. So it's likened to a person's consciousness. When a person reaches a certain level or tier, it makes them more appropriate or qualified to be able to access forms of information or technology
Hmm.
of that specific conscious awareness that they are now accrued. So
Mm,
it's, if you notice a portal, first of all, if you can see it, it means that your first eye is able to perceive it because you're resonating at that same frequency. It's like
mm.
people who see ships. Some people, you could stand with your homeboys and be like, yo,
Yeah,
there's a ship up there.
and they
And they'd
won't
be like,
see
yo,
it.
I don't see it. No,
Yeah.
you don't see it up there? No. Why? Is because you're resonating at a different frequency and your frequency is elevated enough to perceive something outside of your normal spectrum of awareness. So as soon as you accrue a certain conscious state, then it makes you it makes things applicable to your ability to be able to access it. So as
Mm,
soon as you reach a frequency, those portals, you most likely be able to perceive them. And then
mm,
once you're able to perceive them, if genetically you have an alignment with those portals, most likely you'll be able to access, depending on the time frame or the phases in the moon, or just the, sometimes portals aren't able to be accessed until the planet, the way that we're shifted is at a certain point.
No, indeed, indeed. So much talk about UFO activity on the news, on the internet, on YouTube, everywhere right now. Some people say it's Blue Beam, Project Blue Beam is the government, but a lot of people are emailing me privately and saying, "Hey, I'm seeing more activity in the sky more than ever." So, talk to me about this whole UFO thing that we keep hearing about recently.
Well, it isn't new.
Mm,
Let's say that people's consciousness has risen to be aware of them now. And
mm,
also with the earth changes, with the reset, our firmament is about to implode, so to speak. So our stratosphere is lowering, meaning that
mm,
there's more pressure. And usually many people are saying they're feeling spinal pains, back pains, lower back pains, is because the way that our gravitational pull is, we're normally used to a certain amount of gravity. Once the firmament and that stratosphere is pushing down, it's pushing everything down that was higher up. So now what was above is noted because it's being pushed down. So now people are being able to see and witness some of these crafts. Now, not all crafts are the same. Some are reverse engineered by, our government, our wonderful government, who's utilized technology that they gain through, unsavory means. Let's just say that, okay? And, sometimes it shifts like them. And Dr. Delbert Blair usually gave us a great verification that generally if you saw crafts with the white lights, they generally were non-magnetic ships, meaning they weren't very high vibrational beings. Could be Borgs, could be a lot of the Greys that have those ships or control those ships. They're lower vibrational and more disconnected to what we consider to be organic. Anything that has colors like purple or pink or blue or red, those have magnetic energy, and those are more likely higher fielded, much more magnetic beings, and they have a better connection to humanity, so to speak. So those are more positive, and those are generally connected to us.
You talked earlier about being from Andromeda and it being a planet consisting of females.
Yes.
Why do you think here on in this firmament on planet Earth, why do you think the female presence or the divine feminine fell?
Did she?
And when I say fell, I mean you just like we could say black people fell, we could say we were once running things here and now everywhere you turn around it looks like we're on the bottom. I hear so much about societies that used to be matriarchy, and now you're seeing societies where ISIS was replaced by the Holy Ghost, religions that Allah, they may talk about Allah, but they won't talk about Allah, the feminine counterpart. You always hear about male gods, you never hear about goddesses. So it seems like that power, that feminine power, isn't as strong as it used to be. Why is that?
Well, from my understanding is that generally whenever there's a so-called patriarchy that's playing out here, it's on a higher tier, it's a female who's on top. And the understanding of that is when a female is ruling, she wants males to be she wants less competition. So there's more suppression of a female when there's a female on the higher tiers. When there's a male on the higher tiers, you'll see a flip, and then you'll see more females playing a higher hierarchy or more matriarchy in that realm. So I personally don't think that I think on the top it's a female, and she's making sure she's suppressing any competition, almost like the story of Sleeping Beauty. The stepmother was like, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest one of all? And her stepdaughter was the bomb.com, and she was hating on her. So what she do? She set out to go kill her, right? So she had to go hide in the forest, but it's the same thing. So I personally think that on the top, like Queen Lizzie, the lizard, just passed away. Rest in peace to the queen. You know what I'm saying? So once she passed, you're going to see a passing of the torch. That's why you're starting to see a shift of males starting to become the opposite, because now the player realm is going to be more reminiscent of a matriarchy than a patriarchy, because the queen is no longer in rulership. When she passed away, the torch is passed over to a male. We're playing in polarities. Right. This is a polarity system. Okay.
Right. Indeed. Yeah, that's quite interesting you say that. Even with my interactions, throughout my life with women, I've noticed that they were very competitive with each other. So yeah, that's very interesting that you say that. Very interesting.
That's why they have all these shows like, what's the show? Like, Housewives of Atlanta, so it's competing with females competing for that one man. It's because on the top of the rulership, there was a queen. When she transcends, that's changed over to the male, and then you're going to start seeing females in the middle realm being more domineering and a suppression of the patriarchy. And you're seeing that with the males now being vilified for being masculine. It's beautiful to have masculine males.
Since we talk about the competitive nature, how did polygamy ever work? If polygamy was once a thing, how did that ever work out if females are so competitive with each other?
Well, polygamy wasn't for the common man. That was more for the kingdom. So if you wanted to bring two kingdoms together, one that was competitive, it was in alignment to allow for, maybe there was something that, let's say you were from Ireland and I was from France, right? And it would be cohesive, like you had something in your kingdom that would have made us, if we came together, it would bring peace to our lands and give us more power. And sometimes if I wasn't able to sire, you weren't able to sire a male with me, you may want to bring on another female that was able to bring on a son, even though that's not our responsibility, because an older male usually births males. Younger males generally birth females, especially if they're strong and aggressive. That's just science. So I think that had to do with power, just being able to bring in and bond and bring in, more children to be heir to that society. That wasn't for the common man. It's just like we didn't eat a lot of the junk that the kings and queens did, but as soon as we got an opportunity to, now we eat like them and everybody's having heart issues. You know what I mean? So I think that was just adopted. That's my personal take. I don't think that was for a common person. I think that was for the royals and those who were in higher tiers.
Every day on the internet, I see men dogging women, women dogging men. Why do you think there's so much beef with each other at this point, between, especially with the black man and the black woman, and especially on the internet? Why do you, spiritually, on another level, we know why it's happening on one level, but on a bigger level, why do you think that's taking place?
It's being incentivized, because to break up that union, that's the most powerful union in this firmament. When you get a cohesive male, beautiful melanated male, and a powerful, conscious melanated female with a womb that could sire the most conscious children, that's a threat to society on top. Because now you're going to give birth to men that are strong and powerful, and women that are safe and can birth in the new layers of future societies. That's why. So I think that's totally, it's purposefully propaganda. It's being socially engineered. And it is coming from Willy Wonka and his League of Doom. They're putting that out there, and they're causing these kind of rifts. Because naturally, especially melanated women and men, I mean, we've always been together and cohesive. I mean, if you look at the 50s and 40s, I mean, we used to dance together, love each other. I mean, it was the greatest bond. It was when, we decided to, desegregate and, start to meld in, then Willy Wonka, I say government, that's how I call it. Willy Wonka decided to incentivize for men to be not as needed in the household by giving women, other forms of income that, naturally men, you're meant to, provide and protect. If you have somebody else, a third party coming in, offering to provide, and then adding, housing and all that other stuff, that's going to take away and break away that coupling. It's totally engineered by the government. That isn't natural. And people who are doing that online, they're being incentivized by getting paid a lot of money. And I'm sure they're agents, some of them.
What you talk about the government, what groups of extraterrestrials are working side by side with the government to carry out this agenda that we see the Vatican or whoever carrying out at this time?
Well, most people think it's the Greys, but the Greys are a bioborg. They're not even natural.
Well, that's
so
what I heard.
It isn't the Greys. Most people utilize that as the cover to cover the other ones in the background. No. Generally, there's a couple different groups that are working, and some of the presidents back in the day sold us out, like Roosevelt, Jefferson. They made agreements with some of these more nefarious groups and wanted to use some humans for harvesting. So what they did is they sold out part of the society, 1/4, and it happens in every society, but they sold out. And what has happened since then is that we've had I would like to say that, I know people don't like when I say this, but it's my opinion. It's these Pelagians. I really think they're nefarious. These so-called, glorious Pelagians. I personally think that sector, along with other Nordic type of beings, are working with the government, and they're utilizing those positions to harvest on melanated people globally for experimentations. And that's when you get the Greys and everything. Most people just talk about the Greys, but really the Greys are like the middleman, that the Borgs that are being, basically, programmed to go and get and harvest. and they're the ones who usually get the blame. But those are not real beings. Most of them are bioborgs. They're not organic. Most grays are not even from our area. They're so far out. They're not from here.
I remember one time Dick Gregory was on the Breakfast Club, and rest in power to Dick Gregory.
Yes.
And he said that a lot of the people that are going missing, because we continues to hear about people going missing. Where did they go? Where are these people going? And we hear about the organ harvesting.
Yeah.
Dick Gregory says something along the lines that they're being taken to another planet.
Another world, yeah.
Another world, right.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that? Is there anything you...
Well, I have a theory, and it's very controversial.
I want to hear it. I'm ready. I want to hear it. I want to hear it.
Well, okay, my theory is that the only way you can leave out of here through the firmament or the plasma is with melanin. And if you look at a lot of places and see missing brown people from many different nations, you start to think to yourself, wow, is it possible that they just genocided them, or who's using all these organs?
Right.
But I don't know if you saw years ago, and I think there was only a few of us who saw this episode on the it was on not the it was an old show. It was called the not the oh gosh, it was a show. Okay, anyway, it was a show that used to come on, kind of like like a regular show that shows like different scenarios and space aliens and so on. Well, there was one show that is shown on YouTube now, but they took out a scene, and it was a show when they had a scenario where these space aliens came from space, and they came here, and they said to the government, hey, we have all this wonderful thing. We can heal your whole world. We can make everything right for y'all, but we just need one thing. And they said, yeah, what do you need? We have things that maybe we can offer you, and they said, we need all your brown people.
Whew.
They said, brown people? So I forgot the guy who played Benson. You're younger than I am. The guy who played Benson was in the movie. I forgot his name. And he was like, they'll never let brown people. Who would
Cosmic Slop?
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's not the original. It was Outer Limits. Outer Limits was the original show. Cosmic Slop took it, but they took out the scene. Okay. So during the scene, the guy says, they'll never take all brown people. That's not possible. He had a lunar wife. He was like, nah, they're not going to do that. Next thing you know, you already know. They sold out the brown people. Yeah. So all brown people, every last one of them, had to leave and go on the ship specifically. So you see at the end, they're all going, they're crying, they're friends. Oh my God, they don't know what's going on. Then the next thing you know, they get on. Now, this is a scene that they took off the internet totally. This is when I'm going to share my scenario. So as the last person, the brown person goes on, they turn around, they look, and they're like, oh, snap, they sold us out. They get in, the ship goes in, closes off, the ship goes whoop, right into the sky. Then there's a countdown. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and the entire earth blows up. Okay? So I remember seeing that as a child. You notice they took that off of the internet totally. My theory is brown people are being, because they have a chemical content, which just gives, because Delbert Blair used to say it was a passport to the galaxy, having melanin.
Passport.
Okay? So my thing is, I personally think that's why a lot of white celebrities and a lot of certain people who are conscious, like higher tier Masons, the Brotherhood, they get brown women, especially because they know they use them as barter, because they have the ability to leave. So I personally think that not all brown people are being harvested. I think they're being used almost like ransom so that they can have access to the outer world, because brown people, and if you look at places like that, there's a theory in Argentina where all the people disappeared that were brown and they don't know where they are. And, I'm in South America a lot, and they don't know where they are. They say, oh, they mix with everybody. No, because it's close to Antarctica, where the brown woman, there's a brown woman who was sighted on top of the ice wall. She was like 12 feet tall, a brown sister, cosmic sister. She had like illuminated white hair, like the Anunnaki woman, white hair, and she stands on the ice wall. That's an Andromeda. So I personally think that during the reset, brown people have access to those portals and they get exoduses out. That's why I think lunar people get brown children as a bartering system, and I think they keep them to see if they can have access as well. I think it's almost like a piggybacking kind of thing.
Well, like when Madonna adopts black children, like that, right?
Yeah, I think they do it because they know that those children have ability to access the outer realms, outside the firmament, outside the plasma walls.
That is a very, very interesting theory. Wow, wow. Whole brown people for ransom. That was
I don't
wow.
think slavery was what it was. I think it was more ransom. I think they knew. If you look at Reset, and I don't know how much you studied the Tatarian societies, when all these cities are emptied out and the originators are never there. Where did they go? Not all of them are killed. Not all the bones are found. Where'd they go? And why is it only the places where brown people built that they disappear?
What's your thoughts with all of this talk? What's your thoughts about extraterrestrials? What's your thoughts on AI, artificial intelligence, and it getting ready to take over our technology at this time?
They're not taking over. They've always been in control. This is a simulation. It's always been ran by AI. It was a passive AI that most of us weren't aware of. Now it's becoming more overt and more perceived by the majority of people. But it's always been here. So that, along with the Chinese, who are another sector of a type of beings that always take over the reset. That's why they go over globally like Borgs. They go everywhere and they take over every single landmass. That's why you see Asiatic features on every terrain, because before reset, they naturally know to go and take over areas and make it into some, start to, take away the manpower and start to create, machinery to take over where man won't be able to do that anymore.
Indeed. What percentage of the world, we're talking about Sims and souls. What percentage of the world would you say are soul people?
You want me to be honest?
Yeah, no, I do. Yeah.
I'm about 10%.
I knew it was going to be somewhere. Wow.
Yeah.
That's low.
It's like being in a holodeck. We're in a holodeck. You ever watch Star Trek? We're in a holodeck. Remember Captain Kirk would go in there. They go in to do they go into the to play like cowboys. They go in there. Everybody in there is a sim. Everybody in there is an empty seater. It looks like a lot of people. It's an illusion. And how you know is because people loop all the time. That's how you know they're background people.
I had that thought. I said 15% a couple of years ago to myself in my head, because I said that because of this. And a lot of people experience this. Wherever you go, the world's supposed to be so big, but wherever you go, you know somebody that knows somebody. So I said, if there's so many people, why I went, I could go to Belize tomorrow. Yeah. Somehow I'm gonna know somebody that knows somebody that knows me, that knows this person. It's like, it doesn't seem like there's as many people as they say it is in the world, because it's like we're all connected somehow.
Yeah, and separation is an illusion. So we're in a holodeck. It's a very close space. It's even when you fly, it doesn't make sense how many hours. It's almost like they're flying around the dome to make it seem longer. There aren't many souls here. Back in the days, remember, they'd be like, you got soul, like the soul train. It wasn't, but also, having rhythm is reminiscent of those who have a soul, because when you're connected to the beat, to the frequency of the base frequency of the planet, it lets me know that you're connected. You're a soul being. Soul beings have a beat and they're connected. It's like the plants and the animals, they're all on a rhythm, and the rhythm is always the same. When someone doesn't have a beat, it lets me think that they don't have a soul.
Right.
They're not connected to the natural rhythmic cues of this, this firmament, this inside this dome.
Being that you say it's a firmament, and that it's a hologram, what's in the sky, the planets aren't out there. There's always accounts of the ancients saying we got visit from the sky. They always talk about the sky. Yeah. Whether it's the Dogon or whatever. So if the sky, if it's all a hologram in the sky, why is there so much talk in the ancient texts about the sky?
Because the sky changes all the time. I mean, remember, as above, so below. It's like we change. When we do a flip, it depends on the perception of sky, And also, remember, words and meanings change over time. So really, does sky mean above, or does it be below? You got to be careful with that. Or if they point up, it could mean that they're pointing out, because even though we're in a dome, there's still outer realms. So what could be perceived is something comes through a vortex, or a Stargate, and it comes from above, like a you know, if the Dogons saw like a helicopter, they would say it came from above. But it didn't mean that it came from all the way above. It could have came from somewhere else and just appeared from above.
Right. So what's your thoughts about the waters, the ocean, deep down in the ocean? What's going on down
You
there,
trying to trigger
Queen?
me?
Yeah, tell me, talk to me. What's going on down deep in the ocean?
Well, you know, that's all plasma. You know,
Uh-huh.
I made a video saying plasma in, plasma, you know, like blood in, blood out, plasma in, plasma out. In order to come in here, you got to come through the waters, and to come through the womb, you come through plasma. To be here, you have to walk through plasma. Everything exists with plasma. When a bird is born from an egg, it has plasma inside. So everything, we're in kind of like an egg, if you think about it. We're kind of an egg, like a yolk, to be honest. And you know, I was talking about before is that there's waters above and waters below. I personally think that we're under some sort of water, like some sort of ocean.
Right.
And all of these different domes, because all of the outer worlds, they're under domes as well.
Right.
So you got to think to yourself, if you ever look at like SpongeBob, or what's another Squidward, I forgot the other one. There was like another one, they were living in the underground world, or even with Aquaman, look at the world underneath, or the Black Panther, but they weren't living in a dome. I personally think that we're underwater in an unconscious state, in some sort of cryo state, and our consciousness is being avatared here. So once we reach a certain layer or level or frequency, and we have the ability to exodus or rapture outside the firmament, which you have to match the plasma. Because once we go through reset, the plasma becomes more permissible to permeate through, but you have to be at a higher vibration. You know what I mean? So you have the ability to go outside of that. But I personally think there's water above us and water below us. And that's why people years ago used to see fish dropping out the sky. They used to have, back on YouTube, back in the days when I was on YouTube, it was like the guy took a picture and it disappeared, but it was like a whale flying in the sky. Remember, like squid, they were seeing octopus in the sky. Where are you seeing octopi in the sky? Why? Why are you seeing like aquatic entities in the sky? Because we're in some sort of firmament, and above it is water and below it is water. So I personally think, like I said, in order to come in and out, you got to go through, even on the Stargates, look at the Stargates, they all have water in the Stargates. Every Stargate movie you see, it's always like a water gate. You know what I mean? So, or porthole, you know, when you go ice fishing and you open up that hole to go fishing, you got to open it up to go in. That's all in water. So I think the water encases the entire firmament, not only ours, but the other worlds outside of this firmament.
Indeed. Wow. Definitely. You know, this world, Earth, how do you think, what level of importance do you think when we talk about Andromeda, when we talk about Sirius, when we talk about the Pleiades, what level of importance do you think we have in a universal scheme of things? How important is Earth?
Oh, I think we get a badge of honor when we leave here. This is the biggest battlefield. This is like Aliens versus Predator. Like when you dropped in, remember you saw like Annihilating was in there. They dropped them in there. Like that was part of the battle. The aliens, they actually wanted to battle. So you gain a lot of wisdom. You gain some brownie points. Like you get badges of honor. If you come out of here and you go in the outer world, they're going to see you and perceive you as a higher master of multiple realms, because you're interfacing with multiple beings from different types of dimensional kind of makeups, and you're able to overcome them, come out unscathed, and be able to, you know, keep that conscious awareness. You're like the bomb.com outside of here.
So you mentioned Pac-Man. So Earth would be the final level in Pac-Man then.
Right on.
Oh,
that's
wow.
right. Or the final level of like Resident Evil. You know what I'm saying? When you meet the nemesis.
Right.
Yeah. It's the final level. And like I said, when you come here, there isn't any victims here. Kinetically, we create our whole reality. We have the ability, because it's a simulation, the frequency that you are is what you emanate, and it was what you create. So whatever you are is how I always used to tell people, if you want to know what's going on with you, check the mic. Just see what's going on around you. If you have chaos around you, if you have diabolical, sneaky beings, you got to really look inward to see where inside of yourself you haven't resolved some of the hurt, trauma, or things that you do to others that you don't see. So you get to see them through a mirror. This is all a reflective realm too. It's a mirror to who you are. Like if you watch the Never Ending Story, which is good for little ones, if you have little ones, the Never Ending Story, like at the end, the hardest realm is when, what was it? Atreyu? I think Atreyu was his name. Atreyu got the hardest layer is when he had to see himself in a mirror. That was the hardest layer, because when we truly see ourselves is when we can change. You can't, like right now, I have an image here, right? If my hair is messy, do I fix this right here? No, I fix this. And then when I fix this, that's fixed. So, you know, this is also a reflective realm. So that's what I'm saying. Thoughts are things. Whatever you think, whatever you create, whatever frequency you're emanating, you will create in your reality. So there isn't any victims here. If you're having a hard time, you got to work on self. Like right now, we're fasting for 30 days. I mean, that's what we have to do. Sometimes you have to clear yourself, reset, because there's a reset going on the outside, but sometimes we have to reset ourselves. You know, check yourself and just make sure you're okay. Your biodome is good, because if this isn't good, because most disease comes from mind. 99% of disease comes from mind. It's all us creating it. So there aren't any victims here. This is a participation video game.
Participation video game. Wow. I love it.
Yeah, this is a video game. And if you know it is, then you have all control. You know what I mean? There isn't anything. If you want love, you can have love, but you have to be love in order to have love. You have to know what that is. It's harder to create what you haven't any connection to, or any visualization or vibration of. So you got to,
No, definitely. I'm listening. Yeah, no, I agree with you 1,000%. I think the one of the most important things you just said just now is that this is a reflective world.
Yeah.
And you use the example, if your hair is messed up, you're not gonna touch you're not gonna touch the screen. You have to touch your hair. So I just did a show the other day. I'll give you an example. I did a show. I'm gonna do a relationship like a relationship show. And you know, one of the main things that people say is that there's no good people out here in the world. And then during the show, I told him, I said, you're looking in the wrong place. You have to look inside. You can't look outside. You have to find inside is infinite good people. It's infinite. There's no limitation inside. So but I think a lot of people didn't understand it and get it. But I totally get it when you said this is a reflective world.
Perspective is everything. You acknowledge what you are. You know what I mean? It's a projection thing. So, you know, and also with all social media, the young people, you know, they get all this glamour stuff on their computers. So it really gives them a false sense of reality too. You know, people are less likely to work on self if they can just create an illusion and then make that fake the funk, you know, until somebody checks it. You know what I mean? So relationships, you know, you aren't able to have a decent relationship unless you can have a good relationship with self. And if you love you, regardless of what you look, and let me talk to the sea stars, regardless, I'm not a thin young woman. I'm a thickums and I'm a certain age and I love myself. And I've gained that amount of respect and honor for myself over time with trials and tribulations. But at the end of the day, when I go to bed or before I go to bed, I have to look at myself in the mirror. So I always say to the young sea stars, because they criticize them and they're so pretty. You have such beautiful young women in your generation, Rich. They're so beautiful. And they don't know it. Like I always tell them on the show, like, you are beautiful. You're perfect. Like, who wants a replica? Who wants a knockoff of something else? You always want the original. If you got this in your chin, you're perfect. Like, having uniqueness to yourself makes you a perfected being, because nothing else can knock you off. If you make yourself too much look like Becky, Sue, Rashonda, then anything could replace you. You know what I mean? Be you, do you. If you love yourself, whoever matches that is going to love you. I don't have to pretend. You know how many people have to, I don't pretend that I don't see aliens. I tell them off the bat, that's who I am. And if they about that life, they respect me and they want to be around. If not, then that's okay.
Right. What is your thoughts on the moon and moon magic? I hear some people say the moon is fake. The moon is a satellite. There's evil entities on the moon. Some people say the moon is magical and the moon used to be a part of Earth. Some people say the moon magic don't work. I would love to know your thoughts on moon magic and the moon.
First of all, in this firmament that we exist in, the moon isn't real. It's a hologram, just like the sun. Okay, so simulation sun, you know what I mean? So I think magic with intent works with any illuminating factor.
Okay.
So I think if someone has a connection to the moon and that illumination, then by all means, their magic will work. It's really just the intent. But in my perspective, the moon hasn't existed. It's a hologram, and we're living in a holodeck. That isn't true. But there are worlds where people remember the multiple moons that were luminous in their realms. And that could be what they're connected to. So I try now. When I was younger, I was like, I used to criticize it. But now I'm like, if it works and you feel connected to that little luminous, fake, that in the sky, then by all means, because it's really intent. You know what I mean? Like I could lie into the sun. Like I go in the sun and I know it's a simulation. I like to go and get solared up. You know what I mean? And I know what it is. But my intent is I'm here to fill my tank. So I go into the sun knowing that it's going to fill up my chi, give me, fill up my tank. And then I use that energy as needed.
Some people say the sun is a portal and this is a hologram. And the real information we get that comes from other places is through the sun, because it's not coming from this universe. It's coming from somewhere else. So do you think the sun is a portal?
It's a hole in the ceiling of in the ceiling of the dome. Did you watch King Kong versus Godzilla?
I didn't see that one. No,
you didn't see. How do you not see that one?
No,
that's when they go in the inner earth. That's the bomb. They got the hologram. They got the holodeck. Oh, anyone who needs to see that, you need to see that. That is just basically, if this is a hologram, if you accept that, I don't want to, everyone's perspective is their perspective. If you accept that this is a hologram and this is basically a projection screen, then you know that everything, the luminous, whatever's luminous in the sky is basically some sort of technology that's used to, create, simulate a place that we probably recognize where we came from outside of here. So, I personally think it's a hole in the ceiling that's luminous. And yes, that's where things can escape in as far as like messages, binary codes that kind of up level you, especially we're going through this shift where all these different energies are coming in. It comes through that portal.
What's your thoughts on, so much talk about the hologram. What's your thoughts on the hologram and food? In our diet, there's so much debate about what our diet should be. Should we be vegan? Shouldn't we be vegan? Should we eat meat? Should we drink this? Should we drink water? Should we drink coconut water? Talk to me about hologram and food.
Well, thoughts are things, and also remember we're living in a time where we're before a reset, and these diabolical ones are dirtying up, putting graphene in all the food, and making it that. And I think and it's really calling for us to draw in and stop outsourcing to things outside of ourselves. Because the only way that they can infiltrate our bodies is if we invite them in like a vampire. So I think genetically, and this is my beginning stage when I was younger, I studied genetics. So I think for certain types of blood types, certain types of genetics, certain food directives are better for certain types of people. I think melanated women, especially those of us most of us come from the Americas. Some of us come from Africa if you've come and migrated here, but most of us are from the Americas. We generally eat the sun, that solar kind of energy, that chi. And that's why we get bloated up more than other women, because we weren't meant to outsource. We were able to take in all energy and use that as food. That's why people always say, well, brown women are big. It's not that. It's like, would you go and get a guinea pig and give them the wrong food? We've been socially engineered to eat food that's from other species types. And we aren't outsourcers. We were able to give birth ourselves without any, we can always take in a man's seat. Oh, I'll behave. We can always take it. I'm gonna behave. I told Rich I'd behave tonight, because I'm, I come from my sector and, we get a little rough over there, but we can take in a man's, love from his wand. We can, but also as women, we were able to co-create everything within ourselves. So women of melanation, we generally don't need to outsource for food. So that's why we bloat up. That's why fasting, I can look like a regular person, and someone else who fasts, they look like they're emaciated, because me genetically, I come from a people that ate the sun. That's why I tell women to go out and get as much sun on their body, full on body as possible, especially if they're melanated. Then there's women that are a little more fair skinned. Maybe they come from Nordic areas. They need to bring in more food source, and they're okay with things like dairy or goat milk or things like that because their endocrine system can process that a little differently. Their ancestors needed things outsourced, insourced to sustain their bodies. And for males, especially melanated males, I mean, y'all were like hunter, like you go out and hunt, but you didn't eat meat every day. You ate when you hunted, we had it. And then the rest of your diet was mostly legumes and fruit and veggies straight from the vine. We didn't have a requirement. And at the time, back when we had healthier terrain. So you can basically get most of your nutrition, because when I went to Brazil, I'm in Brazil a lot of the times, Brazil, no one really drinks water. They drink coconut water all day long.
Right,
they just
right,
open
right.
a coconut, and that's what they have for the electrolytes, and that sustains them. And the food is really juicy and has a lot of liquid, so they don't require to drink as much water because they're not dehydrated from eating processed foods, You
mentioned you're from the 18th sector. So what is the 18th sector? Could you elaborate on that? You said this word sector twice. What is this 18th sector that you're referring to?
The ET sector.
Yeah. What is,
well, I've been on YouTube since 2011. And then before then, I was part of the UFO community, meaning that, these are the people who are either contactees or abductees who were connected to the others outside, who had a layer of intimacy with I don't mean intimacy like sexual, but intimacy, meaning a good relationship with beings from other dimensions and other, I don't want to say galaxies because that's generic, outside of this realm. And that sector, I mean, we were always aware of the things that would happen in the future as far as reset. We're always aware of the time and the climate changes that would come, because once we get closer to the end and the beginning again, they always do. It's a pattern. It's a loop. They do the same thing over and over. So the extraterrestrials, which is a generic term, the others have always let us know that this is just a loop. It's just a program. That's why there isn't anything new. It's the same program. Like if you go back in the days and listen, even the fake archives they have, and you read some of the books, it's the same playbook that they do right now. They just change a little bit of the scenery, put a little bit of extra lighting, you know what I'm saying? Put a bedazzle a little bit, but it's the same thing. So if you know that generally it's the same cylindrical pattern, and we're doing the same thing over and over, you can kind of master everything. It's predictive programming. It's everything has happened before, it's gonna happen again, and it'll happen tomorrow.
Oh, indeed. What let's get into a couple of questions from the people in the chat.
Okay.
I know they was very excited to get you on here.
Let me shout out to my homies. Shout out to the Zombies and everyone else. Thank you so much for having me.
Indeed. Shout out to everybody. We got about 3,000 people in the chat.
Yes.
Shout out to everybody listening. Let's get right away to this first question. What's your take on mermaids? They want to know what's your take on mermaids.
That's another species. There's many different people who are genetically connected to the MERS. When you hear the MERS, the MOORs, you gotta be careful about the Moors, but the MERS, you know what I mean? Because we live in water, actually we breathe in water, and we live underwater, our genetic makeup, a lot of you wonderful sea stars are connected to the MERS, meaning you are genetically more cohesive and genetically connected to the mermaids or the mer people or the nomos that exist in the waterways now. That's why in Africa, big up to our homies who were in Africa over in Benin. Benin won't, they tell people not to go in the waters. They tell them not to enter the waterways. And you think to yourself, it's beautiful. The waters look amazing. They demonize the waters. And there's a Christian religious sector over in Africa. Some of you know about it, where they talk about the marine spirits, and they demonize any of their people, the people going to the church who are connected to, the marine spirits, they're possessing you at night and you're going to your husband, because they know genetically some of you come from that world, and they want to disconnect you from your connect, because the telepathic messages that those beings, those entities, and they're living amongst us. They have captured pictures and images of them. They're vicious when they come across some of the sailors because they know what happens when they are captured, but some of you are connected to them. So if you personally have thyroid issues, I always say, and I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse, I'm not a referee, but I do know something. A lot of people will have hypothyroid or thyroid issues because the gills are here. That's generally connected to them trying to genetically morph themselves back into who they were. And having thicker bottoms, like thicker thighs, that generally is connected, or more blubber, because most of the water beings are bulky. They have blubber to keep them warm in the waterways. That's connected to the water. And also for hair, you know, they always have the Little Mermaid with red, straight hair. That isn't science. Hair that isn't porous, that doesn't collect water, that's non-porous, that's actually more cohesive to be in the waterways, like a beaver, where water isn't pulled in, it kind of protects your scalp. So if I thought of a true mermaid, she would have, and I have a picture of one that someone sent me from Canada that they came across, and it was a dark skin, brown skin, because most mermaids are very dark melanated, and it had light hair because it was getting scorched by the sun, but it would have the curly, beautiful, coily hair because it's non-porous, because it can be in the water. So if you have dreams of being in the water, breathing underwater, that's definitely a detail that you're connected to the mer family. And you should try to reconnect with that by going into the beach and speaking to your ancestors in the waterways. They try to deter a lot of these genetic groups from going there, because once you have that connection, that sync to them, you just will, everything will change in your lives. You know, you'll become healthier, you'll be more connected, you'll have better interface in this realm. Yeah.
Somebody asked, and I asked this question before: why are black people, so-called black people, afraid of water if some of us are connected to the mermaids?
That's geoengineering. That's social engineering by Willy Wonka and his League of Doom. They've really tried hard with Christianity and a lot of other, like I said, if you go and listen to some of the jargon in Africa, I mean, I heard about it years ago and I didn't believe it. You have preachers talking about demonizing the mer people, the marine spirits. That's what they call them, the marine spirits. You're going to them. That's purposefully done to disconnect you. And also your cellular memories that are connected to your DNA, meaning cellular memories that you have, that you remember things that your mother did, your father did, your grandmother did. They've purposefully traumatized probably some of your ancestors to disconnect you from you going to the waters to heal. Okay? Especially at this time with all the crazy radiation and stuff, you should be going into the ocean to heal, because that's the one place that you can literally, and also possession and all that stuff. All you got to do is go into the ocean, salt water.
Wow, this is a great show, family. This is a great show. Let's get to another question. There was one I wanted to get to. I don't see it here right now. Somebody wants to know, how do we not come back to this hologram? Hologram, yeah.
You have to get to the highest level. You have to raise your frequency. You have to realize that this is an illusion. And once you know that, you can hack the system. Once you know that this isn't real and that your thoughts create your reality, then basically just raise it. And anything outside of you that's causing ish or creating trauma or challenges, you have to resolve yourself. And as you do, your world is going to change on the outside. How you know that you're at a higher level is that you have less trials and tribulations, meaning your world is easier. You walk with ease. Once you're having a lot of, lack or victimization, it means that you kind of have to raise up. The higher up you raise, we get extracted. And it's a fact, because look at all the native groups. Where did they go? They were extracted right before reset. Okay, Mind Unveiled does a great, Mind Unveiled is another channel. He does a great simulation of what happens before the reset, like a hierarchy of this, the bomb. Talks about all the weird worms on people right before, and then it talks about the rapture, the ascension right before the cataclysm, when they clear, because they're going to clear it. It's like a clearing the set, but you get raptured up, and that's why the Mayans disappeared, the people in ancient Kemet disappeared, the Olmecs disappeared. If you notice, it was only highly melanated people that ended up disappearing. I'm just saying it's a theory, but We'll prove it after reset.
From your perspective, I'm very interested to know what are your thoughts on your family members. A lot of
Yes.
people feel as though their family members are NPCs, trying to hold them back,
Yes. Yes.
trying to stop them from ascending. But we're also taught from young, family over everything, blood thicker than water. So a lot of people allow their family to pull them back because they've been programmed that family is thicker, blood is thicker than water. Your family comes first. What's your thoughts on family members?
Family members are like your initiator, your coaches when you first get in this realm. And
Mhm.
once you get to a certain layer and level, you can just kind of allow yourself to grow without being tied into their whatever they're here to do. I see a
Mhm.
lot of people having a lot of issues now, especially with the times changing. They feel kind of, you know, they feel kind of dedicated, or like they're always feeling guilty if they move away from the family or the
Yeah,
consciousness.
exactly. Yeah.
Um, if it isn't for you, if it's for you, it should be with ease. If family members are constantly making you feel um, lesser or questioning your consciousness, that means that you need to kindly just set them aside, wish them well, love them because they're your family. But it doesn't
Mhm.
mean that you have to hold in their frequency and stay around them, because all they're
Mhm.
going to do is lower and challenge your frequency. I mean, it would make zero sense if you got to this tier and then your Aunt Betty said, "Girl, you know what I'm saying? You're not eating no food. You looking skinny. What you eating? Them vegan food? You hanging with them whole tots? You know what I'm saying? You know, then that lowers you because then you take on her projection of you. It's best
Right.
to handle people with a strong arm. Was it like football? Strong arm. You to put the strong arm out. You just say, I love you.
Mm.
I wish you well, and keep it moving. You don't have to
Mm.
necessarily have the same belief system, but you really should just set yourself apart so that you can evolve independently without being hampered. And if they're
Mm.
constantly criticizing you or attacking you based on your conscious awareness, you need to kind of just separate yourself, leave the
Mm.
country.
I'm,
That'll do it.
I'm interested in knowing what are your thoughts from your perspective. You have a very interesting perspective on a lot of things. Definitely want to thank you for being on this show. It's a great
Thank you.
show. Shout
Thank
out to
you.
everybody listening. What are your thoughts on the sacredness of sex? We've seen certain generations tell the people don't have sex before marriage. Wait till you get married to have sex. We're watching our society be a lot more loose with sex. The women are not as, they're covering their bodies. They're like, they're doing what the dudes is doing. The dudes is out there hoeing, the women's is out there hoeing, everybody getting it on. Should sex be more sacred, or is sex being sexually active and going out there having a good time? Is there nothing wrong with that in your opinion?
Well,
On an energetic level, on an energetic level.
I mean, sex is an energetic exchange, and my
Mm.
perspective with intimacy or mating is very, you have to qualify a being. And I always
Mm.
speak to the young women because I think I'm a woman of a certain age, and I think what's gone on is that there's been a lack of guidance and also a lack of self mastery. So,
Okay.
I think it's amazing to mate and have that wonderful union, but women should only, because of the way that we're able to bear children, and also we carry our eggs for our entirety of our lives. And the frequencies
Mm.
that we let inside of our yonis can really impede on the vibration of our eggs, on the healthiness of our biodome overall.
Mm.
So I would
Mm.
say to young women, even though I think what happened is that during the last two generations, young women may have seen their mothers being mistreated, ill-treated. Maybe
Mm.
they've taken on some of that trauma. And some of the
Mm.
social engineering online is purposefully meant to detach us and make us less connected to each other with love.
Mm.
I come from a generation, you would only have intimacy with someone you loved, who loved you. And that
Mm.
would be the standard. And when someone loves you, they initiate your biodome into higher realms of consciousness, and same likewise.
Mm.
So I think, young women, speaking to them, because I'm a woman, I say you have to qualify yourself first by having a certain amount of mastery. And having mastery
Mm.
means that you have honor for your body and the way that you interface with any being sexually.
Mm.
And once you know that you are ultimately meant to encompass a goddess kind of energy, you would only qualify a male before he's able to experience any sexual endeavor with you. And I always like to say, like, I like to, whenever I want to be with someone, I want to feed him because I want him to match my frequency, because our pH changes when we engage with the male. So I want to feed him, and feeding someone and having that intimacy and that connection that way takes time. So he's allowed to court me because now I'm initiating him and bringing him into my frequency by feeding him. So we eat like food, like-minded foods, and thus, and also I can kind of, delve into connecting with his mind, seeing how he thinks, what his dreams are, things that he's hopes for, because now he's telling me how great a father he'll be to the offspring if we have children. I think we aren't qualifying males, and males are very visual creatures. You know what I mean? They like the pretty things, but you have a lot of artificial intelligence out here. Women who are, kind of pasting an imagery, whether it's, characteristically, with the whole, a lot of the, the falsettos that are going on with young women right now. And it's confusing men because now we set the standard for what they engage with. And if we're not keeping it real with how we feel, what qualifies them to even be engaged with us sexually, then we're having, kind of like dead sex, because then you're having sex that isn't building, building and bridging two souls together, and really to initiate, to bring in new life.
Indeed. Do you think it will come a time? You mentioned women having the ability to not need men to have a child. What's it called? Parthenogenesis.
Pathogenesis, yeah.
Parthenogenesis. Do you think that will ever, that will become a reality on this earth again, where women don't need men to have babies? And if so, what is that going to do between the relationship between the man and the woman? You think, if that's the standard or the norm?
It's happening. Well, it is happening now. There's a woman in Thailand and also in Africa, and I think there's more now, where women are starting to gestate and fertilize their own eggs through their bone marrow. It's a very you have to be in a certain climate, a certain frequency for that to happen, and come from a certain genetic makeup where that's even plausible. I think for the most part in this realm, as far as dealing with polarities, I'm not sure that would truly happen, where we would kind of divert from each other totally and women would just start creating babies on their own, because women in ourselves, we naturally have the propensity and the connection to you amazing males. We have that magnetic energy, even if we're not even a mating kind of mindset. We still have a magnetic pull towards masculinity and males, and wanting to have the hunter and the masculine, the alpha, go out and hunt and bring home food. We have it in us. So I think that isn't going to be in this reality right now. I think they're trying to push that. I think there's a lot of propaganda and social engineering through the government and through chemicalization of the food to try to make that happen. But inevitably, I personally think that the souls know better. You know what I mean? The soul groups will always initiate partnering sexually with one another to create the highest conscious beings and initiate them into higher orders of, evolution.
Indeed. Let's get to another question from the chat. I see one I want to ask. Where is it? Okay, are deja vus a glitch?
Yes. Deja vu is a glitch. It's a change in the matrix. Yeah. It's when something's been altered. It doesn't mean by them. It could be you've jumped dimensions, or you've jumped into another alter you. That goes into the quantum field, quantum entanglement, when you literally could be coexisting and you change something frequency wise or vibratory wise, and you shift into another alternate reality where you exist. Kind of like the Mandela effect. Is it Bernstein Bears or Bernstein Bears? So that deja vu is reminiscent of a glitch, or you permeating into another altered reality.
Indeed. Okay. Somebody wants to know, Does love exist anywhere, or is it all programs?
Love exists because it is. Even if it's a program, it still exists. It's kind of like one knows the other. Yeah, it exists because it is a program, and love is a construct. It's like it's what we think of it. You know what I mean? Love for Rich could be very different than love, what I perceive as love for me. We can have general likenesses in how love is described or what it means, but it's different for everyone. So yeah, I think love can be programmable. I think that's why some of you have the same type. I've seen people date the same type every single time. That's a program. You know what I mean? Every time you break up with this one, you just get a younger, version of the same one. You're like, wait, I thought I was getting another one. It's a program. We also have genetic programs too. We've been, that's a, we have things that have been initiated in our bodies that initiate us to pull in specific types of mating.
Right. All right, next question from the chat. What do you think dreams really are? Are we just awake in an alternate reality?
It can be. It can be. Dreams on a high, if someone's higher in awareness, then when you're dreaming, you're jumping into an altar. That's why sometimes you'll go to the same place, see similar people, or you may not recognize the people visually, but you'll recognize them energetically. And you're like, yo, how do I know you? I know you. And you don't know how you know them. Yeah, so I agree. Yeah.
All right, next question. Is time speeding up?
That's relative to your vibration. And I get that from Dr. Deborah Blair. Because I asked him one day, I was like, everything just seems faster. He was like, it depends on where you are on that funnel. You know what I mean? Are you in the center or are you on the outside? Yeah. If you're experiencing quickening, it just means that everything's becoming more and more tangible in the higher field. So it may make you feel like everything is speeding up. It's your perspective. That will stop when you match it. So when you reach the tier where that when you match that vibratory frequency, then you won't get that speeding up. You'll just match the same speed.
Okay, next question. Who are in the Black Triangle ships?
Good question. Well, there's the ones who have the colored lights. That is, I connect that to the Anunnaki, the triangular ships. Those are the ones that you see. A lot of times you see them over Egypt. You see them outside of Africa. You see them sometimes in South America. Those are generally, but you got to be careful because Willy Wonka and his League of Doom have, they have, hijacked technology and have reverse engineered ships that look similar to that one. So you have to look at the lights. And I've only known that when you see the magnetic lights, the different colors, it means a magnetic energy that's more cohesive, they're more positive. When it's white lights, I'm most likely thinking it's geoengineered from the government.
Okay, next question. Where's that scene? Where's it at? This chat moving so fast. Wow, I know y'all having a good time. But I seen a question I really like. Damn, where did it go?
Party in the chat. Go ahead, chat.
It's a party. They having a good time. Damn, I seen a question I really liked. Where is it? Well, I'm sorry, I can't find your question, but somebody in the chat asks, are buildings built over portals to purposely hide or cloak them?
Go ahead. Whoever asked that question, you're one of us. Come on over to the other side. Yes. Ding, 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 ding. Yes. Not all the time, not every building, but a lot of pinnacle buildings, governmental buildings, churches, cathedrals, they're generally built on power points. Whether they're geometrically sound where they pull in energy or they're masking portals or stargates. Yes.
Okay, next question.
I like your statue with the mic. That's cool.
Oh, the Buddha. Yeah.
I just saw that. That's cool.
Yeah, thank you. That's my homie right there. That's my homie.
I was going to say something else, but I behaved.
Does the creator interfere in the affairs of man?
I mean, it depends on his perspective. Aren't you the creator? Aren't you both? So it depends on what you perceive. we're the creators. If you perceive yourself as the creator, the oversoul, then you are helping or assisting or even what you would consider to be interfering with maybe your ideology or your avatar here. So I think in itself, the creator and the man are one and the same. It depends on your perspective. If you see yourself outside of the creator, then I think if you see yourself as a victim of the affairs of the higher realms, then yes.
This is an interesting one. How can a person vibrate higher if they are considered mentally retarded?
Well, who gave them that label? Let's take out the label, number one. That label in itself was meant to stamp someone with a physical limitation that would be perpetuated by people's judgment of it. So let's take that out. And absolutely not. It may limit their ability to convey their feelings or the things that they know or perceive in this reality, but it doesn't denote the frequency that they're able to emit or raise to.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's get to another question. Best way to spiritually protect oneself in this firmament?
Staying out of the ish, stay out of the beef. You know what I mean? If if you're always in lured or connected to things that are lower vibrationally, music, food, sexual behavior, engaging in drugs that lower your frequency, the wine and spirits, be careful of the Hennessy, you know what I'm saying? You gotta be careful. If you are consciously trying to protect yourself, your behavior is the number one way you can do so. What you do is what you attract. So just like, let's say somebody's about to attack you. It's like a witch and a warlock. There's like, I don't like you because you're wearing purple sneakers on a Tuesday, and they try and attack you. They aren't able, they can throw the dagger, but it will miss you if you aren't matching that vibration. Mm-hmm. So the higher up you are, the harder it is for somebody to hit you. It's like a tree that's growing. The first time a tree grows, it's low. All the weeds are trying to kill off the tree. The tree can barely stay up. Then the tree gets a little stronger. The roots get more settled, and the part of the tree, the trunk, gets a little more sturdy. Then the weeds are still trying to get at it, but then there's a point where the tree gets so tall and high, they ain't a weed that can grow within proximity. Okay.
Okay. Let's get to the next question. Somebody asked your thoughts on Jesus. I can't find the question, but they want to know your thoughts on Jesus.
I think Jesus in itself is a wonderful construct of a being, regardless if it's real or not. I think if that being existed, first of all, if the being existed, I think it would be female, just to be able to go above and be so loving and nurturing and honoring and forgiving, because it's a very female quality. And at the time where this being called Jesus existed, even when you see the 12 apostles, you see Mary Magdalene, I would think that was Jesus. And it's kind of like when you ever see like the comedic figures and they take off the nose or something, they kind of whitewash something. I think they do the same with women. They give men credit for what women did, and they kind of switch it. So if the character existed, if she or he existed, I think that's a beautiful, being. I personally think that is a story that's meant to illuminate people or make them act in higher ways, and also make them feel guilty for the sins of the world. It's a little bit of that too. So
yeah, a sister named Vicky Dillard, she came on here and she said the same thing about erasing history and taking away the woman's achievement and making it a man's achievement. Yeah, and we were talking about the whole Jesus thing, because Rod Hayes said that whole Jesus story comes from Isis. He was breaking down how it's not really Osiris, it's Isis.
Isis, yeah. They kind of cloak her. They cloak her.
Yeah. Very, very, very interesting. Yeah. All right, we having a good time here tonight, y'all. I'm gonna take a few more questions, and then we're gonna get out of here. Before the end of the show, though, is there any information you want to tell the people, like as far as contact info, websites, events, products, services, anything?
Services.
Yeah.
No, you can come check me out at FleurBrun. I do have the Patreon. We call ourselves the Zombies. We're on there Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday, working our way out the firmament. I mean, it's a lot of information. We're healing sages. So we about that life. I'm part of the galactic sector, so I know women from all different, and men too, from all different backgrounds and so on. It's a beautiful connective. So you can join us on Patreon. You can join us on Zoom. Like I said, we're on all night. You know, sometimes we don't get sleep. It's like a forever slumber party. And you can just check out my channel on FleurBrun. Yeah.
And let's get to a super chat question. Can we travel to Mars through the ocean?
Yes. Yes. If you can get around the firmament. Yes. Yes. Mars is, and there's a little bleed over of Mars, I think, in Arizona. I think sometimes they open up these vortexes and they aren't able to close it, so it bleeds over like a jump room. I think Arizona Sedona has a little bit of that bleed over, because when you go to Sedona, it feels like Mars. Even a perception of Mars, it feels like it. So that red dirt, that feeling, that energy, and a lot of it's a portal. So I think, yes, you can go under the water if you can get out of the firmament. But again, a reset, a lot of these portals open. If you qualify for those portals, you can access them.
That's why I'm glad to have you on here. You say a lot of interesting things. You say Arizona's a bleed over of Mars.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Very,
when you
very
go over there, I met a Martian. Yeah. It's really groovy. I always say also, for anyone who's having troubles getting over trauma, or they've been hurt, or it's hard for them, they're sad or they're grieving. When you go to Sedona, there's these rock beings that absorb your sadness and anger. So it's by default, it's their food, it's their loosh. So when you go over there, you'll notice when you go over there, you feel better because they're eating your problems. But don't stay too long, because if you don't have problems, they'll create them. So I always say, if you have someone who's having troubles getting over some pain or something, and I don't see enough melanated people going over there, go over to Sedona. It's beautiful. And they have this wonderful vegan place where they have like this honey tea that's in this wonderful copper cup. It's what is it called, chocolate something. It's so good. It's all raw, fresh. Go over to Sedona. Go clear yourself. If you broke up with a boyfriend, you feel sad, go there. If you have a girlfriend and her butt got smaller, go there. Okay, enjoy yourself.
Okay, next question. Are there people who live in underground cities?
Yes, yeah, in different tiers. And there's different layers, like an onion, to this dome. And even though it seems like a flat surface, there's layers beneath it. So there's different tiers. There's grays living under there, insectoids like ant-like beings living under there. The ones with the big noses that are connected to the Malachians, they're living under there. There's a lot of beings living underneath the ground. And there's a lot of underground cities that, Queen Elizabeth the lizard had created so they can get back and forth without you knowing. Yeah.
Where would she go back and forth? Where would Queen?
To Denver. Look at the Denver airport murals. There was a direct line from the railroad underneath going straight from the UK to Denver airport. Denver has, anybody who hasn't seen the Denver airport murals, that is a testimony of what happens during the reset. And it's sick. By the baggage claim, you can see it. So they go back and forth underneath the ground. She would do it to travel with, anonymity, and also, unfortunately, that's how they're able to traffic, certain people and children.
Is she one of the people who you would consider a lifetime looper? Yeah.
She hasn't transitioned. She's just changed into a melanated body. Surely.
She changed into a melanated body?
Because that's the next after reset. Those are who are back into power. That's why you see the power structure change, where lunars are being suppressed and vilified, and now you're going to see the illumination of the melanated once again.
Wow. Next question. What role does twin flames play during this reset?
Well, I love that question. Actually, during the time before the reset, it allows for, because really you have to match a certain vibratory frequency to be able to be raptured or kind of do an exodus, if that's what you desired or you were even qualified to do. But when you're able, this is what I've heard, is that right before reset, a lot of people who have same energetic, like splintered from the same flame, they meet up at that time because love is the biggest initiator into higher fields of consciousness. So you ever feel love and you're like, everything could be burning outside the house. You're like, I don't care. I love you. Everything about you. I love the way you look, the way you taste. I love you. That is a higher vibration. And when you're able to twin right before, even during what would be perceived as chaos, it actually initiates you into higher forms of awareness and consciousness. And it actually activates you both to be able to leave.
That's interesting. You know, we spend so much time reading books and we don't realize how important things like love is, loving one another and being in relationships and things like that.
It's the
And,
best thing. It's
and
it's the most amazing feeling to love a being and have trust in them and them in you. And that love is an initiator. I mean, that's why I say to the young women, it's very important for you to only engage with a male, and males for you too with a woman who loves you, because that in itself is an illuminator, and it actually helps to heal the body. When your wand initiates her yoni, you actually can heal her. Like if she has something going on health wise, and vice versa. So if you're healthy and you have love, love is a high vibration. There isn't anything that matches it. That's why they're breaking up the relationships, because that is the highest form of initiation, is to love. And how many people do you know that are in love right now? It's rare. Okay.
Yeah.
But that love is what will heal you, help you, and raise your frequency. So I always say for males, for sun stars and sea stars, try to just qualify people for love. Do they love you for who you are? When you wake up in the rising and he sees you fresh faced, does he love you? Does he care when you're not feeling well and thinks about bringing you some soup? Does she call you when she knows that you're disappointed, that maybe you were looking forward to something and she just knows what to say to you? You know, does she rub your feet when she knows that you're not feeling well and give you oil baths? You know, these are forms of loving interface. And we have to start doing that. If we talk about African love and Black love and all that stuff, that's what we did. We used to oil our soldiers before they went out. We used to take them and put him in the back and oil him down and tell him, listen, baby, I'm waiting for you. And I'm only waiting for you. And he knew that he was going to battle every demon so he could come home and be with us and his family. That's what we did. We don't speak about that anymore. You know, that movie, what was it, 3000, when the Mayans, so I forgot when he
300.
300, remember? And he went out there, she was pregnant, nurse, listen, she was giving birth in the water. That man, listen, he was going to go home to her. That's Black love. We need to talk about that anymore. And also, we're softer when we know that our men love us and love us fully. And to be able to have mastered multiple women, you have to be able to master one. And if you aren't able to satisfy her, mind, body, and spirit, then you shouldn't be initiating other relationships. That's why this whole, multiple relationships is funny, because a lot of the men that are qualifying that aren't able to even satisfy and please one woman, make her happy and feel safe. Because for us, when we feel safe, we love you even more.
Yeah, I'm loving this conversation. People here loving the conversation.
See, I behaved, Rich. I
appreciate it. I appreciate it. I want to have you on here on a regular, so I need you to behave all the time.
I could go left, but I'm behaving.
Oh, man.
Big up to New York in the house. Anybody from Malvern in New York.
Indeed. Shout out NY. 2 more questions, then we out here. Let me get to this one. Can consuming animal flesh cause you to reincarnate into that animal?
That's a good question. It places you in, because what you eat is what you are. It's kind of like you hold the vibratory frequency of that animal as well. Like that's why Native Americans, when they hunt a deer, a buck, they would wear they go around and they dance like the buck. They would initiate, they would feel the connection to that buck. So yes, as far as natives were concerned, you could come back an eagle or a deer, but it was always connected to the higher versions of them. If that's what you were initiated to do. It's really hard for you to digress, because that's digressing into an animal. Not saying they're lower, but it's a totally different frequency. They're much more impulsive. You would have to lower you'd have to be really savage, like really like a hunter, like just killing things without thinking, just savage, to really kind of degrade your frequency to be able to activate and reincarnate into animals. People who reincarnate to animals, they've done a lot of heinous things. That's like a downgrading.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of good questions from the chat tonight. I definitely appreciate all of y'all. A lot of good. I can tell y'all really interested in the show. A lot of good questions and commentary. A lot of good commentary in the chat as well. Last question before we get out of here. A lot of talk on solar flares. What is your perspective and thoughts on solar flares?
It's energetic frequencies coming outside the firmament coming in because of the shift. It's the machinery that's working. So it sends like these waves, like these beautiful rings of energy that come down. They transform you, they change you, they activate latent DNA. That's why it's important to fast. And I say to only do so if you're healthy. You know, I'm not a doctor or, you know, anything like that, but if you're healthy, because it allows for you to take full the DNA to be fully activated without muters. Food, alcohol, drugs is all a muter. If you are able to take in that prana energy, it actually shapeshifts your cells and turns on latent cells that are meant to make you into like meta beings, super beings, where you have mastered telepathy, telekinesis, abilities to also levitate. These are abilities that aren't artificial or by super beings. They happen to you if you basically are, your body is allowing the energy to transform it and upgrade it. So I personally think the solar flares help to initiate you into higher super bodies, like your biodome, to become more efficient for the times we're in.
Indeed. Let me just ask one more question, because this is a super chat, and I'm sorry, I'll be missing the super chat questions sometime. What do you think of the book that talks about the return of Anunnaki in 2022? Their final warning, is it true they have a black goop that's supposed to wipe the earth clean?
I read the book. Thank you for that. I love it. Thank you, Shaw. That's beautiful. Flower pot. I love your name. It's already happened. So I don't want to be, it's already, the black goo has already been initiated. So the black goo is sentient, but it isn't negative or positive. And we had this discussion last night on Zoom. It's that, I don't know if anyone watched Ghostbusters. Do you remember Ghostbusters, Rich?
Yeah.
I remember like the goo, the purple goo. And remember they were playing that song, like a happy song, and the goo was like happy and bouncing around and everything like that. And then they played lower frequency music and it was like attacking people.
Yeah.
That's what the black goo is. It's sentient, but it's neutral. And it only can be initiated by the vibration that the intent it's being initiated into. So they've already initiated the black goo. This is reset. Everything gets clean, wiped slate. This whole world gets cleaned off, cleared off. It happens. We're in a loop. It happens. It's a AI system, and it's a mechanical system that goes over and over and over again. So it ends. Everything you get raptured, or you stay and you get reincarnated. Everybody's not going. People reincarnate. People are being held in like a net right now. They're not allowed to be reincarnated because we're going into reset. So now if someone transitions, they kind of get held there until reset, and then they come back and be initiated into the nether world. Similar pattern of ascension, changing and evolving, and then they end it and start over again. It's a program.
Wow. Hey, what a show, family. What a show. I want to thank you for coming on the platform and joining us. I definitely look forward to having you on here again. Definitely look
Absolutely.
forward.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me. And thank you everyone for coming in tonight and joining us.
Yeah, I got a lot of emails telling me, yo, you gotta get on the show. You gotta get on the show. So it's good to have you on here. Before you get out of here, once again, tell the people about your Patreon or anything else they need to know to contact you.
You can join us. You see that we every Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday we're on Patreon. Working through clues. I have some of the most amazing healing sea stars and sun stars ever. We're about this life, so we're basically supporting each other, loving each other, and initiating each other into higher consciousness. If you're about that galactic light, you should join us. It's a late night. We're usually there long term, but if you really enjoy this conversation, you would enjoy it more. And then you can join me on my channel, FleurBrun.
What's your channel? The exact
Yeah, FleurBrun. Just join me on FleurBrun. Yeah, I'm there every once in a while, you know, getting in trouble, but I try to behave myself. Yeah.
Indeed. Hey, this is Brother Ritz, C
Thank
Star,
you.
FleurBrun, and we appreciate everybody for tuning in. With that
Appreciate
being
it.
said, we getting out of here, family. Peace.
Peace.